I'm the first president in 71 years that didn't start a war. And when Hillary Clinton was running against me, she said, if you look at him and if you hear him, he's going to get us into wars. I said, no, I'm going to keep you out of wars. 3 years ago, we had no problems. We had no inflation. We had no Ukraine problem. We had no Israel problem. We had no problems literally whatsoever. We had a border that was secure, the most secure it's ever been. The United States economy was the strongest it's ever been. We did some job, and now everything is horrible. You're going to end up in a world war. We have an incompetent leader of the United States. He can't walk off a stage. He can't find the stairs. He can't put two sentences together. And this man is dealing with Putin and President Xi, and the biggest threat is nuclear weapons. And we have a man that doesn't even know what a nuclear weapon is as our chief negotiator. And it's a very scary thing. You could end up in World War III.
Okay, so we're at war. We're in yet another war. This time is in the Middle East, per usual. That seems to be the usual place to go for the United States when it's time to engage in yet another military and industrial complex operation, when these neocons and these neolibs decide to sink us deeper into depth and start yet another war. So who are we at war with this time? We're at war with Yemen. So I'm sure you guys have heard about the strikes in Yemen, about the Houthis, and about the conflict going on over there in the Red Sea. But what the media and the administration, what the Biden administration and his handlers are doing, they're kind of downplaying it. They're saying, well, it's some little faction of lunatics over there in Yemen, and they're trying to stop trade, and they're just some very evil, dirty, despicable people, so we just need to drop a couple bombs and it'll be all good to go. This is Yemen. The United States is at war with Yemen. They don't want to say it like that because the Houthis used to be on the terror watch list. They were removed back in 2021. But when they say a name like that, the Houthis is like, oh, it's another terror group. We got ISIS, we got Al Qaeda, and all these. We got the Houthis. We got all these people here. So in the minds of the public, the people who are not really paying attention, they think, oh, another terrorist group. We just need to drop some bombs and wipe them out. No, the Houthis, for the last several years, almost 10 years, they've effectively taken over the government. There's been war over there for decades, and they've been in this civil war going on for the last 10 years. But since the mid-2010s, the Houthis basically run most of the country. Even though internationally they're not recognized as the government of Yemen, they effectively run the country. So when the United States is saying, oh, we're over here fighting the Houthis, we have thousands of U.S. military personnel, mostly sailors. They're at war with Yemen. But they don't want to say it like that. Like I said, they keep trying to soften it because they want the American people to just not pay attention. Oh, it's just another Al Qaeda, another ISIS type situation. So we're just going to move on with our lives. But we're at war with Yemen. We're at war with a country in the Middle East. So what the hell is going on? Why did it start? Because October 7th, the whole Israel-Hamas thing, when Israel entered Gaza, we had a lot of people in the Arab world over there who started blustering, talking a lot of crap to Israel, warning them to not commit genocide. And that's debatable. I'm not going to get into that debate. But we had a lot of countries over there, Turkey, Iran, the Egyptians. A lot of people were warning the Israelis to back off. And if you don't, then there's going to be some type of military action. In fact, the Turkish and Egyptian civilians are out there protesting daily, demanding that they go to war against Israel because of this. But the Houthis, the nation of Yemen, actually took action. So they immediately started launching strikes at Israel, and the U.S. Navy jumped into it. So we got Israel going into Hamas, and immediately the United States is dragged into a war against Yemen as a result. So we got Yemen and the Palestinians going against Israel, and then we got the United States in this war has been dragged into this war to assist the Israelis. So they're blocking missiles that are being launched at the Israelis. And also, we have all these cargo ships. We got world trade going through the Red Sea because the Suez Canal is one of the most important trade routes in the world because it gives a shortcut and it saves a lot of money for all these cargo ships. Let's look at this map here. So we have a lot of trade coming over here from East Asia, from China, Vietnam, Philippines. And the cheaper route is for these ships here to go through here, and we have this little choke point here. You got to pass right by. This is where the Houthis are mostly. So the entire nation of Yemen is right here. The Houthis have the major part of the land, the biggest population areas of the land. So they're right here where all these ships have to pass through before they go through the Suez Canal and they go drop their cargo off in Europe somewhere. But they've been seizing these ships. We've seen videos of them using helicopters. They've been putting mines down there in the land. They have small boats, armed boats out there. So they're either seizing the ships, they're full-blown attacking, launching missiles or shooting at the ships, or they're just diverting the ships. So we can see here thousands of ships. A lot of these ship companies that are owned by various countries in Europe and some other countries, even some countries in the Americas. We have U.S. flag ones, have some from the Bahamas. They've been diverting because the insurance companies are now saying, look, we're not even insuring this area. If y'all go over here, you send your ships through here, you might get shot, y'all might get killed. We don't know what the hell is going on. So a lot of these ships, thousands of them, tens of thousands of them, are now going the long way, the old way before this canal was built. They're going all the way around, and this adds a week and a half to 2 weeks of travel time. Depends on the ship, but it adds a lot of travel time to this trade route. So it gets more expensive. So what the Houthis are saying is, what the people in Yemen are saying, look, as long as Israel is bombing the hell out of civilians over there in Gaza, and the United States keeps funding it by sending them missiles and money, then we're going to disrupt the economy of Israel. We're going to disrupt the economy of the United States and its flunkies over there in Europe. That's what they're saying. So it's getting more expensive. These people in Europe, they're already starting to feel the effects of it. And the crazy part is, if these ships come in with like a Chinese flag, oh, you're from China, you're owned by some Chinese company or a Russian company, the Yemeni people, they let it go. The Houthis just let it through. So if you're flagged by the U.S. and Israel or its allies, then they give one of these civilian cargo ships hell. But if you're from China or Russia, you're one of these ships, they just let you go through. And a lot of these ship companies are now falsely flagging themselves as Chinese ships in order to trick the Houthis into just letting them through. But we're going to react to this video by Scott Ritter. He's a military and global affairs analyst. Used to be a weapons inspector in Iraq back in the Bush era and a military officer. So we're going to look at some of the stuff that he has to say about this Houthi situation.
But the Iranians have been, they create something called the axis of resistance. And, it stretches from Lebanon, where Hezbollah is, through Syria, into Iraq with the pro-Iranian militias, Iran, and then down into Yemen with the Houthi. And Iran, provides, and I guess Hamas is thrown into that now too. And Iran provides financial resources and in some cases direct military assistance. With Yemen, there's no doubt that Iran has been providing Yemen with the resources necessary to take on Saudi Arabia in a war by proxy, ballistic missiles, drone capabilities, etc. But the Houthi do what the Houthi want to do. It ain't like the Houthi say, oh, big brother Iran's got to tell us what to do. The Houthi woke up and said, screw it, baby, we're going to war of the Palestinians.
Yeah, so that's definitely true. That's something that the United States media keeps saying. They always say the Iranian-backed Houthis, the Iranian-backed militia. So they're basically trying to say the Houthi are a proxy of Iran, and Iran is dictating all of this. That's why you had in some of these town halls, I think that was Ron DeSantis, somebody just asked him yesterday outright, hey, are we just going to keep bombing Yemen, or are we just going to go wipe out the Iranians because we need to cut the head off the snake? So what he's saying here is something that can be verified through research. The Houthis, they are in this alliance with the Iranians. They call it the resistance against the great Satan, which is America, according to them. But the Houthis are making their own decisions, even though they do get funding and weapons and stuff like that. They get training from Iran. It's not like Iran is making a call to the leadership over there in Yemen and saying, okay, do this and do that. No, these people are acting on their own. It's like the Israeli situation in Hamas. It's not like the United States is saying, I need you to go bomb this hospital or bomb this place right here. Drop a 2,000-pound bomb on this particular area where we know a bunch of civilians are. Stuff like that has happened. No, the United States does back Israel. They support them. They ally with them. They fund them. They give them weapons. But the Israelis are making their own decisions on what they're doing over there in Gaza.
Palestinians. And Iran's going, no, don't. We're trying to manage this escalation here. We don't want you. But the Houthi are the wild boys of the Middle East, and they're just like, yeehaw, go. And they start firing missiles, they firing stuff, and and now they've done something that really hurts, is because this, I guess it's a Strait of Al Babel or I can't pronounce it, but the little narrow thing on the, where the Red Sea comes into the Gulf of Aden. There's a narrow little passageway where all the ships have to go through, and they're in the range of everything the Yemenis have. And the Yemenis have said, as long as Israel's doing what they're doing in Gaza, no shipping will be allowed to go through if it's heading to Israel. And they're sink. I don't think they think they've sunk stuff, but they've hit stuff, put it on fire, they've captured stuff. And so now what's happening is that, ships are very expensive, and the owners don't like their ships to catch on fire or be captured. And so they're diverting all the way around Africa, coming in the other way to get to Israel. And that's very, very expensive. It's costing Israel tens of billions of dollars of denied, economic activity. And so the Houthi are actually very sophisticated here. This is a very sophisticated weapon that they've built, the Israelis. And the United States is going, damn it, now we got to respond here. But if we respond there, we got to take those forces and move them here. And remember, we've already said we don't have any money for this. All those aircraft carriers that we deployed to scare Hezbollah, it's basically eating up the Navy's operational budget, meaning money that was supposed to be set aside for training and other things is now being spent on these operations, which means there's no training taking place. There's other things that aren't happening. And now you want to expand naval operations into this area. Where's the money coming from? This is why the U.S. Navy is calling up the Australians and saying, hey, get some of your ships up here right now. We need you to take care of the security. And the Australians are going, no, we're not.
Yeah, so they started this operation called Operation Prosperity and Guardian. Let's look at Lord Elson.
These attacks are reckless, dangerous, and they violate international law. And so we're taking action to build an international coalition to address this threat. And I would remind you that this is not just a U.S. issue. This is an international problem, and it deserves an international response. And that's why I'm convening a meeting tomorrow, a ministerial meeting with fellow ministers in the region and beyond to address this threat.
So this is yet another coalition of the willing, but I call it the coalition of the coerced, because these nations, these allies of the United States, many of them are NATO, but you got some in the East like South Korea and Australia. They're being dragged into this against their will, and many of them have flat out told the United States, no, we're not going to do it. In fact, many of the nations where this is happening over there in the Middle East, most of these Arab allies of the United States, Saudi Arabia, who they were funding to fight against Yemen in the 2010s, and the Saudis got beat by the Yemeni. The Saudis said no. The UAE, they told the United States, no, the UAE is right there where the action is taking place, right there next to Yemen. They said, no, we're not getting involved. It is the only country in the Middle East. Egypt said no. Turkey said no. We're not joining your coalition of the willing, quote unquote. So Bahrain is the only country, some little tiny island where there's a big naval base, U.S. naval base. They're the only countries that said we'll get involved because they have massive economic incentive to get involved from the United States. But let's look at this excerpt here from this article, Defense and Security Monitor, about this coalition, about how Lord Austin, how Biden and his handlers have been having trouble forming this coalition. It ain't like back in 2003 with Bush's coalition of the willing, because these people are more wise as to what's going on. In response, U.S. Secretary of Defense Lord Austin announced on December 18th the formation of Operation Prosperity Guardian, a multinational security mission to ensure safe transit through the region under the aegis of the existing Combined Maritime Forces Task Force 153. Though the Pentagon claimed a united effort made up of 20 nations committed from allies has seemed trepidatious, with almost half preferring to remain unnamed. So you got a lot of people who claim they're going to join this coalition of willing, but they say, look, don't announce publicly that we're involved in it. And why is that? Because if the United States, the biggest, the baddest, the greatest country of all time, and is just way better than everybody else, way better than China, way better than Russia, why are these people who are being dragged into the United States coalition doing it anonymously? Look, okay, your big brother, we're your little flunky, your vassal state, but please, when you announce this, don't say that we're involved. Crazy. Some named partners will only contribute minimal personnel, with Norway sending up to 10 staff officers and the Netherlands offering only 2, while the Department of Defense stated its expectations for the coalition to grow over time. At first glance, the group lacks named participation from several key allies, including Turkey, Germany, Egypt, South Korea, and Japan. So what's going on here? United States said, look, we need a lot of ships. We need naval power down here in the Red Sea area, in the Indian Ocean area, to fight against Yemen, to fight against the Houthis of Yemen. So a lot of these NATO countries said, look, we're not going to send any ships. We're not going to send any troops, definitely not ground troops. But look, I got a couple of staff officers. We do some admin work. I got a couple of guys who can type on the computer and file some paperwork. But as far as ships and naval power, nah, that's all you, bro. That's all you. South Korea, Japan, hell no. Even though they get all of this support, all this money from the United States, and they get all this praise in the U.S. media about how great they're doing and how trash their enemies are, they don't want to get involved in this coalition. Some partners like Italy, India, and France have opted to send ships to the region on their own initiative. So we had these guys. I think France sent 1. India may have sent 2 ships. They sent a handful. But they said, look, we're doing this on our own volition. U.S., you have no command of our ships. We're not part of your coalition. We're not part of Operation Prosperity Guardian. But we're going to send some ships, and maybe we might do something, but it's really for deterrence purposes, because we don't have the military readiness to get involved in a war with Yemen or Iran or any of these other countries in this resistance led by Iran. Distancing themselves from the U.S. umbrella. While these deployments may contribute to Prosperity Guardian's ultimate success, they show that even some close allies are hesitant to join the U.S. effort publicly. Yeah, that's crazy. So what I have to say about this is, oh, how the mighty have fallen. So let's get back to this clip here.
Do that. This is a problem for the United States because we don't have the force structure to do everything at once. And so the Houthi have dealt a huge blow, not only to Israel, but to the United States. And the only way that we could rectify this is to go to war against them. But the Saudis have been using American provided aircraft and American intelligence since 2014, and they haven't beat the Houthi yet. And then again, who's going to pay for this? Where's the money coming from? We're going to have another war in Yemen, a forever war. And none of these wars have gone well for us. And if we go to war against the Houthi, the whole region's going to blow up. The axis of resistance will just go haywire. These militias that are firing against American forces in Iraq and in Syria, believe it or not, are holding back. They could do a lot more. They're simply reminding the Americans that they're here and that there will be price to be paid so long as this conflict goes on, that nothing is free.
So that's the end of that. I'll link the entire interview in a box if you want to listen to it without my interruptions. So what's the United States going to do? That's the question, because you can't stop these guys from ships. You can't stop these guys from the air, because the United States is sending these ships over here to launch Tomahawk missiles. You got planes out there coming off carriers launching bombs. But here's something that these people have learned from watching Ukraine and Russia, and from their own war, their own civil war, and also their proxy war against the United States and Saudi Arabia. They learned, okay, we can't gather in large places. We can't be out in the open. We can't have these large structures, command center like they do in Western U.S. NATO type doctrine. We can't fight like that. We need to be on the ground. We need to be spread out into thousands of locations. So if the United States really wants to put a stop to the Houthis, then they're going to need to put 40 to 50,000 Marines on the ground. And that'll stop them. But does the United States even have those type of assets? Because right now you have 2,000 Marines over there ready to go on the ground, which is not enough at all. Those Marines will be in a serious world of hurt if they got on the ground. Just 2,000 Marines. So does the United States even have that many Marines? We know recruiting is down, military morale is down, the leadership is doing a piss poor job, and on top of that, are you going to put all of your assets, the majority of your assets, in Yemen? You got Ukraine, you got Taiwan over there, you got the United States helping France fight in Niger over there in Central Africa. You're stretched thin. You're all over the place. So do you even have that many assets to begin with? And if so, do you want to sink a massive percentage of your assets over there in Syria? And on top of that, another question arises if the United States does do that, because they will have to print money to do it on top of that. And they will have to commit to a longer ground war because you have to sustain those Marines. You have to give them backup personnel, logistics, all that. But how is the region going to react? We see these people are in this resistance, this alliance against the United States led by Iran. What's Iran going to do? Because if the United States gets involved in this, Iran is involved in this. What's going to happen in Syria? What's going to happen in Iraq? We already see troops over there at U.S. military installations in Iraq being attacked. The installations themselves have sustained damage. Troops have been hurt, allegedly. None of the troops has been killed. But how is that region going to react? We know Iran is allied very closely with Russia, especially after the U.S. NATO-led proxy war in Ukraine against Russia. So what's Russia going to do? Russia and China are closely allied. Iran and China, they're getting closer together. And I'm going to put this link also in the box. A link, I did a video a few months ago about NATO's readiness, because they are not ready at all for war. So United States gets involved on the ground over there in Yemen. Of course, they're going to want to drag their partners over there with them. So what's NATO going to do? These countries, they barely want to send personnel to help in this coalition of willing, this little launching missiles from the air and sea. They don't even want to get involved in that. You think they want to get involved in a ground war? Because they're not ready for it at all. These countries are weak as hell. But what are they going to do? Are they going to join? We see the countries in the Middle East, U.S. allies in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia, Turkey, they don't even want to get involved. Egypt doesn't want to get involved. So United States could put troops on the ground over there if they want to exert that many resources to Yemen. But it's going to be very costly. And the bottom line of this whole thing is the era of the United States being the world police is over. The United States military is stretched thin. They've been weakened by corruption at the top, the corruption among the leadership, politicians enriching themselves, the military industrial complex getting rich, wokeness, all types of corrupt ideology entering the leadership of the military. People are not wanting to join the military. People don't want to serve. People are hip to the game that they're not really protecting the United States, but they're fighting wars for rich men, for the military industrial complex, for politicians. So they're realizing that, and a lot of people are resistant to joining the military. So this era of being the world police, sending your ships all over the world, just snapping your fingers, dominating people, telling people what to do, it's over. You're losing ground. These people over here, like the Houthis, these people in the Middle East, they're not afraid of the United States at all. And then United States flunkies, their vassal states in Europe, most of them don't even want to do what the hell the United States is saying, because they're realizing that they can be in a world of hurt if they join this type of stuff. So here's the thing. Unless the United States prints a lot more money to wage more war and commit a very, very large number of ground troops to Yemen, this is going to continue. This whole, I'm going to launch Tomahawk missiles and drop some cruise missiles and all of that, it's going to be a failed endeavor. So let me know what you guys think about this. Leave me your thoughts below. Share the video. Thanks for watching.